Do you think you know everything? Because if you do, this won't work. Are you willing to make change to help you grow? If you don't, then this won't work. I mean, those are the only two things that I've seen that don't work.
Welcome to the Center Stage podcast. Have a really good show for you guys this week. I'm really excited about our guest. She is a friend and mutual clients of each other. Jackie Kibler is an EOS implementer, and Jackie, there may be people out there who don't know what that means, so we'll unpack that. But listen, thank you for being here, and I'm really excited about the conversation we're gonna have today.
I'm so excited that you asked me. I'm an admirer of you and the companies that you're with and love working with you. So I'm excited to be here.
I love it. Well, before we get into sort of the nuts and bolts of what you do, Jackie, you have a really interesting origin story coming from a family of entrepreneurs. And I have not actually even fully heard that myself. So let's start there. Kind of tell us about kind of your upbringing, your family culture of entrepreneurship, and let's go from there.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, I'm first generation in the United States. My grandparents had businesses that they ran when they came to the US. My dad had a music business for around 50 years. And, the cousins, things like that. Everyone has their own stuff. But for me, growing up in an entrepreneurial family, particularly relating to music, you can understand that the ups and downs of childhood were a little, bipolar, if you will, right? And so when I went to school, I went for psychology. The last thing that I wanted to do was work with entrepreneurs so I could get away from people that were triple type A personality like I grew up with. And so I went to school for psych. I was a suicide counselor, did dual diagnosis rehab counseling, a couple other things, and then was like, I don't know if this is really what I want to do. So I ended up working with large Fortune 500 companies. So I grew up with Dun and Bradstreet and started in Syracuse, which is where I'm from. And every 12 to 18 months, I was relocated because D&B didn't believe that you could manage the people that were peers. So I ping-ponged all over the country. And when I went into leadership, I was very quickly known as kind of the fix-it gal for underperforming offices, regions, divisions, and eventually companies. Honestly, because of the way I work with people, you know this firsthand. I meet people where they are. The tools for EOS are always the same, but how we work with them might differ for each client. So what I would do with D&B is I would get with executive leadership, find out what was going on, work with the teams, build out process, structure, goals, and then hold people accountable to the goals, and then celebrate successes. Now with D&B, that just meant I was moving again, um, which was fine. At that age, I really didn't care. I loved seeing all the different cultures of the United States. Um, did that with D&B, Wells Fargo Corporate Executive Board. I was brought down to Southern California for the second time to work with the LA Times. They needed a inside sales reorg and then a reorganization. They needed to launch a new product and also develop training for the sales slash advertising folks. So I did that. The training went out to what at that time was called Tribune Publishing. So I was across the country training other people how to do it, and then was headhunted by Vistage Worldwide. And um, unbeknownst to me, so first influential group that I'd ever worked with, no direct reports, right? But I was working with 100 of my fathers, triple type A, entrepreneurial people. And what I decided to do,
Give the quick context for Vistage for those that aren't familiar with it, just so everybody has that picture of what you're describing.
absolutely. So Vistage is a CEO peer advisory board. So around the country, it's either called TEC, or Vistage. And there's groups of like 12 to 16 CEOs that get together once a month. That's their board of advisors. They've got a chair that's their executive coach. And so usually a Vistage chair would want to either grow a group, launch a new group, help them help them develop in the community. So that's what I did. And I treated them just like I did with everybody else, which ended up working because I helped to make my part of Vistage go from the number 10 spot to the number 2 spot in about 12 months. One of the chairs, which is the chairman of groups, right, brought me the book Traction. He's like, you have to read this because this is where Vistage misses the mark. We don't do anything with that. And when I read it, it was sort of like a holy cow. This is everything that I did kind of just by gut instinct, except it was documented global in a proven process and had a community. So, like when I was ready to go off on my own, EOS was really the only thing I wanted to do. And I loved it so much and was able to be successful with it that about 3 years ago, maybe a little more than that by now, I also became a coach for EOS Worldwide. So now I've got my client base and also teaching new people how to do what I do.
Love it.
2023 came around. My mom ended up getting sick. And so this is sort of like I moved back to the East Coast to be closer to her. And that is how I met my friend Danny Decker.
Love it. Love it. So for those that aren't familiar yet, and as you know, probably the majority of the listeners of this podcast are law firm owners, some smaller firms, some larger firms, but very much in the entrepreneurial space, right? And so a lot of folks have probably heard of EOS, but let's just take a quick minute and just define EOS, exactly what that means, and then we'll kind of get into your role as an EOS implementer and talk through that. But for those that don't know what EOS is, go for it.
So EOS is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's a business operating system. And what I mean by that, it's a human energy system, not a software. And what that does is it helps to I'm like a business advisor for companies. I work with companies in three different areas. So it's crafting a vision, bringing it down through the organization so that everyone aligns to it and can execute against it because they have the tools to do so, creating a healthier organization. Usually, thinking of like law firms, next month I'm working with one of the largest law firms in Los Angeles, Jacoby and Myers. They're in several states. New Jersey, I worked with an organization called NFC. I love working with law firms. Cool thing with law firms is that you went into business because you wanted to build your practice. It's just that there's also the business side. So if you think of it like that, I help you create a structure from the business side of your practice or your firm, which is really what it is.
Yeah, no, I love that sort of explanation, and I think, listen, to some extent that's true in every industry, right? That there's the art of like doing the service, right? Being the lawyer or being the landscaper or being the accountant, but then there is the process of building a business around that. One of the books that was really impactful for me early on was the book E-Myth. And Michael Gerber talks about, most people who go start a business are a technician. Like they know how to do the work of the business. And law school, to build on your point, prepares students to be practicing lawyers, but it really doesn't give them any sort of container for running a business. It doesn't teach them how to run a business. And
Right.
pretty quickly you realize like you're gonna fall on your face and burn yourself out if you don't learn how to run a business. And so I love that you described it as kind of an operating system. And I think, that's been very, very true of my experience, that it is a mechanism of taking the chaos of running a business and creating systems for it and ways to operate it, grow it, and stay sane kind of all at the same time. So talk about, because I know your kind of specific role and focus right now is being an EOS implementer, correct?
Yes,
So what
absolutely.
exactly does that mean?
So what I do is I am a trusted advisor to the clients that I serve. I help to bring a unbiased, objective way to integrate the tools that I help to bring to companies or implement, if you will. So it can be around People, making sure you've got the right people in the right seats, that you're building out process that are sustainable and followed by everybody, that you're utilizing your core values as a way to build your culture, having different initiatives or what we call rocks every quarter to meet your annual goals. And really, from a strategy perspective to a tactical perspective, it's everything in between. So, one thing that I like to say that people actually get, because sometimes when I'm speaking like this, it can be sort of conceptual. So January 1st comes around, and Danny, you and I have got your annual, and you guys are like, Jackie, what are you doing this year? And I tell you, Danny, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. You're like, oh God, that sounds so good. And I'm like, I've wanted to lose 20 pounds for 20 years. I've got a great vision, but I'm not doing what I need to do to make sure that I reach the goals I need to get to. So EOS does the same thing. We've got that, what you want for your long-term goals, but then we make sure that you're set up with the process and how to execute it.
That is awesome. I love that illustration. I've never heard you break it down like quite that way, but that makes so much sense. So, all right. So, let's say, someone's listening to this podcast. That sounds great to them, not just kind of clarifying their vision, but also building a plan to get there. What sort of size company should start thinking about EOS? Like, who is EOS right for?
So in the book, so I'm going to give you, Jackie kind of freestyles sometimes, right? In the textbook or in the book Traction, it will tell you between 10 and 250 employees. But as you know, I work with some companies that are not quite 10. And then I work with companies that are global and, almost $1 billion in revenue and everything in between. Really, what I look for are people who actually want to grow or build a better foundation or create more sustainability. When Jacoby and Myers called me to work with them, they were like, "We're not broken." Most companies aren't broken, but just using, sheer numbers, what got you to 10 million won't get you to 20. You've got to look at all different parts of the business to identify what it is that they're looking for. So for me, revenue or number of employees doesn't matter. It's all about growth mindset. Do you think you know everything? Because if you do, this won't work. Are you willing to make change to help you grow? If you don't, then this won't work. I mean, those are the only two things that I've seen that don't work. I just before I was on with you, I mean, as you know, I travel all over the place. So next week I'm going to Salt Lake City, construction company that's there. I've been with them for about, I don't know, 9 months. Night and day difference just in that 9 months. But they wanted to make change. Law firms, it's the same thing. I've had a couple that are like a solo practitioner, which I only did a couple sessions with. That was probably a little small. But once you get into actually wanting to build that firm model, you doing just your own thing and not thinking about the firm model might have some challenges. How are you going to operationalize it?
Yeah. Love that. That's super clear. So, a lot of folks listening to this probably own a law firm with, 4, 6, 8 members of the team, right? So kind of approaching that threshold where you kind of described and also to your point, like growth minded, even if they maybe aren't at 10 yet, they're growth minded. So for a law firm owner who is, considering this and actually let's take it in this direction. If somebody starts working with you, I know there's kind of a specialized process of like onboarding someone into the EOS system. So just break that down for us. What are the first kind of few things that you do with a new client?
So the first thing that I do with anybody that's a prospective client is we do what's called a 90-minute meeting. It's complimentary, no charge. And with that, I'm asking questions about their firm that are very specific to them, which also helps me when I'm doing an implementation on where focus should be more drilled down on. Once they do the 90-minute meeting, then there is the first session. A session is 7 hours plus or minus an hour with one law firm. That one that was really the immigration lawyer in LA, solopreneur. We did it on Saturdays. So I actually work around if you need special, if you want special days, I will usually work around that. Um, but we'll have the first day, which is a focus day where we're building out first. We're learning about the 5 leadership abilities. What are the tools that I need to know to get unstuck, right? Then we build out what they want their firm to look like in the next year. That's called an accountability chart. It's based on the structure of the organization. We build out your first set of rocks or 90-day initiatives. We build out a scorecard, which are the things that we want to measure regularly. And we begin to put together what's called your level 10 meeting, which is just a weekly meeting. A lot of other meetings can roll into this. So lots of times people are like, well, how do we deal with where we are with our cases and stuff like that? There's different ways to weave it in. From there, there's a couple days in vision building where we put together your who you are, what you do, where you want to go, and how you want to get there. And then after that, then we begin into what's called quarterlies and annuals. That's all execution mode, which is what Danny is in. So every 90 days I meet with him. So it goes from meeting the first 3 days are foundational days. I'm meeting with him every 30 days to then once a quarter.
Yep.
Obviously, I keep in touch with people as much as possible. I talk to people in between sessions. They've got me and Sheena, who is my colleague and assistant practice manager, about 24/7.
Love it. Okay, so you mentioned level 10 meetings. And for me anyways, those are sort of when I think about EOS, I think about L10 meetings, right? Because that is kind of where the rubber meets the road in terms of weekly meetings with your team, progress against your goals, issues that come up along the way. In my experience, it's pretty unique. So let's spend a little bit of time. I have a few sort of like tools within the EOS system that I want to unpack with you a little bit, and the L10 is one of them. So can you just kind of describe, what's the purpose of an L10 meeting, and just kind of how that works and how that supports the overall growth goals that you were talking about?
Absolutely. And there's so many different places I can go with this. Most companies, before they do EOS, I have one company where they would start meeting at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday and not end until noon. Another one where it was a 3 hour meeting that got nothing accomplished. With the level 10 meeting, all that really is it is a meeting once a week where you are checking the score. It's checking the foundational tools, right? The scorecard. Did you do what you said or you committed to doing? Are you on track with those initiatives or rocks? What people headlines are there? So this way circles are connected, right? The whole point of this is to make sure that you are where you need to be and you're letting all the other folks on the leadership team, even if it's only 2 people, keep yourselves connected. We then spend time going through issues or things, other items to discuss, making sure that any commitments for action items, we're calling them to-dos, are done. And then the reason they call it a level 10 is because if I followed the process and we were able to make progress, you should get between a 9 and a 10 for a rating every single time. The coolest thing that I have found, especially with newer folks that do this, the first couple weeks are so clunky because it's something so new, similar to the company I just told you I was talking to. After about the third week, people know what to expect and they get like this. And we use different software, or different companies use different software to house everything EOS. So every week I get updates of how people did. The company that I was talking to today initially used to get a rating of a 6, which is failing. Yesterday's meeting, and I told them about it today because I was very excited for them, was a 9.71.
Amazing. Love
Yes.
it. Love it. Well, that resonates with me. Okay, so a lot of entrepreneurs, not all of them, but a lot of entrepreneurs are, high on the quick start spectrum, right? Like we like action. And I mean, I am somebody who, when I see the word meeting, like I want nothing to do with it. I want to get things done, right? I'm an anti-meeting person, but I really love the way L10s work because there is a structure, there's a purpose. Like my worst nightmare is sitting around for 3 hours and not accomplishing anything. But and I know you're on the same page there. And I what I love about the L10 structure is that like you've got 5 minutes to check in, and then you've got another like 5 minutes to kind of review progress against your goals. And every moment has purpose. And it's structured in such a way that you get things done. You don't feel like you're wasting time. It's just a really good way to, I would say, eliminate a lot of wasted time in meetings, but yet make sure that you still have the conversations that you need to have so that, everybody's on the same page. Again, a lot of entrepreneurs, myself very much included, are chronic under communicators, right? We think that everybody can read my mind, and why
Psychic.
can't everybody move as fast as I am, and why doesn't everybody see it? And so it's actually really helpful to have those sort of guardrails in place to make sure that the conversations that need to happen are happening, but at the same time they're happening efficiently, and we're not, spending our entire life in meetings.
Right. No, 100%. And you just nailed it. Most people that are what we call visionaries, so think founders of companies, founders of firms, if you will. I just started my own practice of Jackie's law firm, and I've got all these ideas. And help that level 10 helps keep those ideas so you can still talk about them, but in a very structured way.
Love it. No, exactly. And that has been exactly my experience. L10 meetings have redeemed meetings for me. So those who are listening and like, if you're like me and you're just not a fan of meetings, the EOS system is something worth looking into. Jackie, I like that you mentioned, because this is actually where I was going next. I think maybe another huge takeaway for me, and something that's been, transformative for me and in our business, is this concept of like the visionary integrator relationship. And so can you kind of talk about what that is and what that means?
Absolutely. So, in most companies, there is, and I'll try to do it in a firm model as well. In most companies, there is someone who is sort of like the founder, the idea person of the business. They're like, hey, you know what, Danny, we need to start a law firm. Let's do it. We'll do it. It'll be both of our names. It'll be great. We'll be able to focus on employment law or, transactional law, whatever. And we're going to be awesome. And I'm going to come up with all these ideas. I'll be the face of the company. Um, Things like that are what we call visionaries. They are face of the company. They are out in the public view. People know that name because of that person. They are out shaking hands, kissing babies, networking, um, things that are sort of like they want to have the vision, they want to craft it, they want the culture. They don't want to have to deal with the details of making everything happen. That brings us the integrator. The integrator is someone who can take all the ideas, prioritize it, bring it down to the ground for the one thing that's the biggest priority now, and then holding to that for whatever that time frame is. They are they'll execute against vision, they'll execute against strategy. They are the tiebreaker in level 10 meetings where there might be discrepancy of people, not being able to come to some sort of consensus. They're going to make sure that communication flows fluidly from the visionary to everybody else. They're going to make sure goals are met. They're also the no person. So if there's 50,000 things that come up, it's up to the integrator to be like, we really can't do this now. Let's put it on the long-term issues list and we can do it. We'll talk about it at our next quarterly.
Love it. So, okay. So for the average, again, small law firm that's listening to this, maybe the owner of the law firm is nodding along and recognizes himself or herself as visionary, but maybe doesn't have an integrator, in his org chart yet. And for a smaller, firm may not have the luxury of going and just hiring sort of a full-time integrator. What does that journey look like? Do you have to hire a full-time integrator, or can somebody on your team sort of move into that role? What does that journey look like?
So I'll give you a couple things. One, especially with some of the smaller law firms I have worked with, this also goes with like I've worked with surgical centers too. The office manager usually kind of acts as the integrator, right? They're the person that's like, well, this is what we've got to do. This is what this is said. This is how we're going to do it. Office managers definitely do that. Most law firms, the very first thing they hire is someone to help take care of all the administrative stuff. That settles that, and that's what's worked in other law firms that are smaller. Also, if there's sometimes where the visionary has to act in both seats. So I've got lots of companies where it's a visionary, it's just a VI seat is what I call it, a visionary integrator seat. It might not stay that way. So that's another option. Then let's just say I don't know, I'm the rainmaker of the firm. My office manager probably wouldn't be able to do all the things I'd want an integrator to do. So I also work with several what's called fractional integrators that I have personal good relationships with, and they can step in to make sure that that role is filled, even if it's 8 hours a week or, however many hours
Yeah.
needed.
No, that makes so much sense. And I've very much seen that journey as I've watched law firms grow where it may be sort of a legal administrator and or an operations manager
Yeah.
and as the firm grows, I've seen sort of the title of like professional legal administrator, like PLA, and that is
Yeah.
somebody who really steps in almost as like a COO level and really runs the day to day of the business and allows the visionary to focus on, the marketing, being the face of the company. So yeah, I mean, and we embraced EOS early in our journey, certainly before, we had, I don't know, we probably had 6 or 7 people when we started. And so like, yeah, I would just encourage for the firms out there that may feel like they're a little too small for something like this, like this system will help you get there.
It will. And one thing that I will say, everyone gets a complimentary 90-minute meeting. If we agree that you might need to wait a little bit, I am always there I'm a help first person. EOS is a help first community. So there's lots of different companies that I've worked with, just sort of coaching as a help first type thing
Love it.
until, you reach X number of whatever.
Love it. Well, Jackie, this was super helpful. I know that myself and our leadership team here at Spotlight has always appreciated, the opportunity to work with you and the help that you've been for us. I love the conversation today. Hopefully, we unpacked it a little bit for our listeners. So for the audience who's listening to this, who wants to learn more about you, maybe wants to schedule that 90-minute complimentary call with you, where do they go? How can they connect with you? How do they take the next step?
So, my email probably is the best way to do that, which is Jackie, Jackie dot Kibler, Kibler, at eosworldwide.com. And I'll wager most of the people that are listening also know you, and you know everything about me. So if that email didn't work, then hopefully they can also get in touch with you.
Perfect. No, certainly that we can definitely do that. We'll also drop that email address in the show notes so that afterwards, if someone's listening, just scroll down and there's the email address. All right. So Jackie, this was awesome. Just kind of before we wrap up here, you work with businesses all day, every day. You know, if you could share sort of one takeaway, one tip for the law firm owner that is in growth mode, is working on marketing, is working on sales, is trying to grow. What's just kind of one takeaway you want to share with somebody as they are planning for the growth of their firm?
As things happen, there are going to be things that they themselves might spend 5 hours doing, where somebody else, like an outsourced bookkeeper, perhaps, might take 5 minutes. You can usually get them relatively inexpensive. And your 5 hours of spending on that, if you're $500 an hour, think of how much you'd be saving if you're spending, like for me on my bookkeeper, because that's an area I don't want to work on. I spend $200 a month. with my bookkeeper. Allow yourself to focus where your green time is. Green time is money time, red time is halt time. Stay away from the halt time as much as you can. I know in the beginning that's difficult, but as soon as you can get someone to handle some of the stuff that you don't like doing and aren't good at, delegate, delegate, delegate.
Awesome. Great stuff, Jackie. Thank you so much for joining us.
It was so great being here. Thank you, Danny.